Welcome to the Mixed Emotions podcast. This is your host, Mihir Oka.
Sachin Chitambaran is the guest of the day today on Mixed Emotions. He is the founder of Connect Hub. Connect Hub is a company that works with people having mental health issues and people who are distressed in nature. And there is a relief organization that he runs. He also works for Samaritans Mumbai, which is an NGO that is primarily suicide prevention helpline. He is the lead trainer there. He has worked in this field for the past, I think, for his entire life. He has global experience. He used to first work in the UK and now he has settled back in India to continue this journey. He is also president of Befrienders India Association, which looks after more than a dozen of mental health organizations, mental health helplines, suicide prevention helplines, almost 15 such helplines that are situated for people to have access to across the country. And I think globally, people could reach out if there need be. So, Sachin, thank you so much for taking out the time to having this conversation. Is this like a calling of yours? Like, or did you start because of a personal experience? Or it's a very heavy field to be in, not because of the nature of the field, but because people don't tend to talk about it commonly out in the open. So, how did you start, and how has it become such a strong initiative of yours to make it stigma free, to make it so that more people are aware about the kinds of mental health distresses that we may maybe take for granted? Can you please enlighten us?
All right, thank you for that question. That really makes one think, I guess. So usually, when this is actually a pretty common question in terms you definitely added nuances to it, but the common part of this question being like, what happened? What happened in your life that you're doing this, right? This is usually how it is phrased, or at least it comes across as. But thank you for the nuances. So when the thing is, there has been no great tragedy or
Touch
anything
wood.
that I can. No, see, the point is, we are hoping that it's not going to be for us, but the numbers currently are much worse. But yeah, just to kind of let you know how it got started, right? Growing up, suicide was never like on my mind as such or anything. Growing up, life and death as a question comes up. I think that's part of everyone's growth stage. So, what does life mean? What does dying mean? Those kind of questions do come up. But then I didn't have any particular fascination or any trauma that was going to kind of keep me there. However, I was always interested in what's the mind, like why are people so different, why we behave so differently, why we react differently to different things. So I think probably maybe on the neurodivergent spectrum there. So things would always confuse me why people behave the way they do. So this has always been a question, but unfortunately I was semi-decent in my studies. So obviously when you do semi-well in your 10th standard, you are supposed to do science. So psychology, even though it had briefly come to my mind, but I think when I was my age, psychology and all was not kind of heard of so much or understood so much.
Right.
Even now it isn't, but at that time it didn't seem like a feasible option. It was too big a risk. With the marks you've got, go for science. But not because of my parents. I think that was just how we were kind of like the group herd mentality was this at that point of time. But yeah, eventually I realized how much I didn't enjoy numbers or the logical world or the sterile world, how I'm more inclined to people. And that started my journey with hotel management,
Oh,
because that was like, okay, this will not be a desk job, right? I will be moving around and meeting people and engaging with people. So that was still something I was like, okay, this still keeps me kind of close to people. So great. And it was for the masters for my hospitality management that I came to UK. And it was in the isolating time that you are in a new country, not knowing anyone, but still wanting a connection with people, that I searched for something like listening or listening volunteer. And Samaritans came up on the screen. And I just was like, okay, look, what does this organization do? It was like suicide prevention helpline. I'm like, okay. I mean, personally, because I didn't have any baggage maybe with suicide. So this was, I'm like, oh, that sounds really cool. Like there's something that can be done in this area, which was like, and anyone can participate. So it was like a very unique thing. I was having a lot of free time. So I just ended up checking them out. I saw what they were essentially looking for listeners. As an organization, what they're offering is active listening. And with confidentiality, non-judgment, being without any solution or any such things, but just helping you offload whatever emotional distress you're carrying.
Right.
Now, this, as I've explained, it is as simple as that and extremely helpful. And when I started volunteering with them is when I saw something that we all are so scared of, the word suicide, right? It was so easily preventable. Let me put it that way.
But
the shock was not about suicide, but about how easily it can be prevented. And that was as easy as just listening to someone.
okay.
So, as weird or shocking as it may sound, like when you're talking about giving help to someone who is on the verge of attempting or something like that as well, ideally the best you can do is offer a listening ear. Let them share, let them talk.
Let them vent.
Vent or share or demand or cry or shout or give bad words, whatever it is, let it come up.
Right.
So it's being a listener. But what I've also understood from my stint there, I volunteered there for about 4 years, like you had mentioned, was how difficult it is for us to be good listeners. And the difficulty was not in terms of learning a new skill, but the difficulty or challenges came from not being able to let go of the biases that you believe make you a good listener. If in that weird cryptic way, if that made sense.
It did, because you then want to provide help in terms of what you think is right, not really detaching yourself from your experience and forgetting that basically this is not about you.
Yeah, right. Exactly right. Because, and no matter how much, even like when we interact with trainees, so the combination is I saw how easy it is, but my calling, to be honest, is to be like a facilitator.
Right.
That is my true calling in that sense, if it has to be, but it is such a process-driven thing because it's more about me wanting that engagement with some people to be able to explore an idea, get the real insights, make it applicable, get it into a practicable model. This is something that comes very intuitionally from me. So that is more of my calling. But when I saw how there is such a big problem that is happening, because when I came back from the UK to India, I always thought that one of the biggest problems for suicide is isolation, loneliness, and disconnection, right? That one starts experiencing with the society, with the group, with the family, with self.
Right.
I predominantly thought that this is a white man issue.
Oh, okay.
Imagine that. Because while I was in the UK, I was like, man, I can see why, because all of them live alone. So it's a very linear conclusion that you come up with, right? Because you're getting so many calls, you just know people are so lonely.
Right.
See, people are so disconnected. And I thought that, oh, this is the individualistic society's main problem. For us, which is more of a collectivistic society, families, but bigger groups, and all these are like a day-to-day adventure. I was like, nobody lets you have your own peace, so how can you be isolated? So
Right.
suicide is not a problem for India was my, I don't know, a very naive belief. But when I came back to the UK in 2013 and I actually started, that's when I know, I was so confident I never even checked the numbers. But when I came back is when I just randomly checked the numbers and I was shocked.
The numbers is who keeps the numbers? Is it NCRB or is it? Okay. So they keep a record of who's dead and their cause of death, and it is.
So this particular report is called ADSI report. This is accidental deaths and suicide incidents. So they this particular report that comes out every year, normally around 2 years delayed. So the last one that we have is from November 2022. But yeah, so it collects information on accidental deaths. So anything that can come under accidents and anything that comes under suicides. So it collates it across states, union territories, so on different levels.
Okay. So, but see, the training aspect of it would be so hard because you will have to train them to first detach themselves. Not in a conversation, you always tend to think about how you can be of more value, ideally. And so, what is your process of training anybody to be an active listener, to be a good listener, and then do you give advice as well, or are you afraid, or wouldn't you be afraid that your advice may not go down if it is not thought properly with context? So it'll be so hard to train people.
Right.
How do you do it?
So again, we don't believe in training people. So for example, majority over 60% of the trainings that we conduct, even the one that I've developed, it has been developed in such a way that we are not focusing on skill building straight away. The point is there is already a lot of things that is covering up the good listener.
Okay.
Right? We almost think that as children, you were amazing listeners.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Right? No, because you will listen. You will not interrupt or something when someone is sharing something with you and all. Very often you will listen. Unless you are like hungry or something weird stuff is happening.
Okay.
But as children, we tend to be better listeners. But what happens growing up, we train ourselves into sounding like a good listener or sounding like a role. Because you must have noticed, right? Different parts of your life, different games that you're playing, different roles that you're performing in them, right? So the Mihir Oak is the Richard Feinstein when he's doing the podcast, right? But how is he when he's in front of his parents? How is he in front of his colleagues?
True.
So, do you see? There's like almost different personalities.
Yes, alter egos and so on.
Alter egos and all of that. But it needs to kind of come out for the other person for it to be visible, right?
Correct.
I think I just kind of lost my chain of thought there as well.
That's alright. We were on the training aspect in terms of what is your would there be a system curriculum 1, 2, 3, 4?
Right. Yeah. So like I was saying, this is essentially what we have to do is untrain or unlearn.
Yeah. Okay.
So the listening skills that you already had, first we have to kind of reach there. So the first idea is for us to bring about self-awareness. And what do we do for that? We look at the topics that are needed. So for example, the components of listening itself. What are you listening to when you say you're listening? So we break them down. We are looking at the skills that you are needing, the values that you need to operate on. Because most of our biases and values we have are quite subjective. Right. And because of that, what happens is when someone says something you like, you will appreciate it. When something is said that you disagree with, you will stop listening.
Your confirmation bias comes into play.
Exactly. And your avoidance and anything that you are used to. Yeah. But essentially all that it does is stops you from listening. If we just understand that as the crux, what we now need to do is while you're offering someone a listening, you have to first look at it as the process. What are you offering? What are you supposed to be paying attention to? And when we bring about these parts, then we are able to help them see, okay, where are you good at? So if you are seeing that these are the 4 components, and you see how one relates to each of these, where do you see yourself using something more than the other? Are you over dependent on one particular thing than the other? The aim is to find the balance.
Right.
So
how important is self-esteem in all of this?
How would you define self-esteem?
Self-esteem in the sense that self-awareness becomes a big part of knowing what you are and who you are and what you're good at, and and personal versus professional, and how do you not take feedback personally versus professionally, and how do you not be sensitive about judgment, and how do you not be, it's not your fault innately, it's like, and that could be a big reason why there's something wrong with me, and then that goes a long way into feeling like you're not good enough, or you're not confident enough, or you're not liked enough, or you don't fit in well, or all of this is your confidence of doing A versus how you do A versus, and then that may spiral into something else only, and that may then become distressing because you cannot get out of it, and then so how do you build self-esteem if
So
you
the
don't have
point
it?
will be, the point is, at the end of the day, even the values, for example, that we look at, we are able to help you get the awareness,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how our training is programmed as well, right? So there is a theoretical component, so which helps you objectively see, visualize, contextualize what are we talking about, so that there is no language gap between what you are saying and what I am saying.
Right.
So the words need to mean the same thing,
Right.
right? So we know, so when we are talking about components, we don't just say these are the components, let's just get over with it. No, we spend 40 hours on this training and more.
Okay.
Why? Because each of this component we need to understand, what do you already understand about it. Okay, everyone shares, there we are able to see there's at least 10 different definitions coming out.
Mm-hmm.
We then come up with, okay, what is an objectively true definition that we can come up with for this? We understand the theoretical component of it, so we are objectively seeing.
Right.
Second, insight building. What you do is, okay, if this is what this is, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does it look like? What does it mean? What is the consequence of it? What happens? What's the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario, right? You need to develop a perspective on that value as well, right? Because it's based on, because when you're talking about judgment, right?
Yeah.
You're essentially using a lens to be able to bifurcate between two things.
Right.
So our training focuses on, like, okay, we are not going to be saying good or bad, that, oh, we are only going to be look at things from a skills perspective. What you are understanding here is not what you're, oh, you're a good, this type of listener. No, you have this listening skill, you are quite good at it. The problem becomes is you overuse it. And there is this particular component, if you start practicing a bit more,
Yeah.
you will develop your skill, making you a better listener overall. Now the point will be, how much does Mihir Oka want to work on this?
Yeah.
I will not be able to. So when people join in as well, we have to have that discussion with them, like, what's your motivation for this?
Right.
Right? When you want to be a good listener, when you're saying you want to be a good listener, what is your motivation for it? If it is just a silly-willy thing, then you will not practice, because the 4 components, like I said, theory, insight, then you need to see the application of it.
Mm-hmm.
How do I see this being applied in my day-to-day life? So these are the type of transactions I get.
Right.
How does this value and the insight translate into this as a conversation, as an experience? So we try and do role plays for that, for example. And then finally comes the practice. Now you are developing a new skill set for yourself, which will be different from what Mihir has and what someone else.
Right.
Different training will need to work on a different aspect of their skill set.
Mm-hmm.
So they will be individually taking different things. So this is to address your question, like, okay, so many different needs are happening, and it will affect their own listening esteem or confidence in this regard. The point is, first you need to see where you are needing improvement. Once you identify that, we are telling you this is what it means. It is not making you a good person or a bad person.
Yeah.
When you are able to see this is what I can work on, now it's your choice.
Fair.
Right? Now, and to address a second mini sub-question that you asked in terms of how to give the feedback.
Yeah.
Now, even regarding giving feedback as well, we don't focus, and we also show the group how to give the feedback amongst each other. First and foremost, I don't believe in giving any feedback that is just qualitative in terms of, that was really good, or it was awesome, it was superb, it was, oh, it didn't feel that great.
Adjectives.
Or,
you need. Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, I mean, so when we are going to be looking at feedback in this term, when we are looking at behavior and things like that, I'm like, okay, now we're going to have an objective hat on.
Right.
We are understanding that we are looking at the skills here, not the person.
Right.
So from the person who's going to be receiving that feedback needs to first prepare himself, herself as well, saying, right, I'm going to be looking at my skills. They're going to give me feedback on my skills. So I may start, I will focus on first, what are the things that I liked? No matter how bad the call was or anything like that, you will need to be able to see things that you liked or skills or things that the person did behaviorally that helped in the call so that they don't lose that. So when we give feedback, we are like, okay, this 1, 2, 3, these things that you did were quite nice and helpful. And it helped. So if it was the pitch, okay, this is how it helped, or whichever way. And then wherever they could use improvement, you give the feedback there, like, okay, so you were speaking a bit faster though.
Right.
So it made it feel rushed. Not that, oh, you were really rushing the caller. Do you see? That's the difference, because then it becomes a judgment.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to give feedback over the skill, the person is not getting the feedback. The skill is getting the feedback.
Do you do corporate trainings as well? Because I think that this is required by a lot of anybody who can give actionable feedback requires this kind of training, that you need to give it in such a way that you want the person to improve. So the way that you communicate feedback also, it's on you. It's not only on the person to improve, it's on you also on how you communicate. So yeah, that could be a good idea. A lot of corporates may not.
We do with corporates, but sure, on how to give feedback, because there's like so many bases on communication and things like that.
Yeah.
We have also kind of kept our work quite niche into the mental health and suicide prevention space as well. Otherwise, that work gets, again, the focus is left from that work. So
True.
We have kind of kept it. I know it's not monetarily the best decision that we have made, but we have kind of kept it on this.
But morally, yes.
Ethically, more like it, but yeah.
Fair. Okay. So this is like a volunteer-driven organization completely. You can call it an NGO, which it is. How many calls do you get? It's a helpline, right? So people can just dial in and speak what is troubling them. How open are they to doing that, and how many calls did you get?
So yeah, we actually publish our annual reports quite, not judicial, like in a timely fashion. So all of this data is actually available as well. But so that's just a shout out to anyone who wants to visit our website, right?
Right.
The reports are available as well. However, to kind of say on average, maybe you're looking at about 10 to 15 calls a day, because we are operational for only 6 hours. See, again, because it's a completely volunteer-driven situation, so turnaround or turnover is quite high in this space, because there's high distress, high pain areas, and additionally, we are not offering any monetary compensation.
Yeah.
So we understand that that's challenging, so that's why we organize like multiple trainings a year to get more people to join in with the organization as well. But yeah, with the strength that we have, we are hoping to be a 24/7 helpline, but currently in the 6 to 7 hour setup that we have, we get about 10-15 calls easily. I'm just saying on average for the whole year. And
this is 10 to 15 calls every day in 6 hours.
Yes.
So these are people who potentially would want to take that step.
Right. So people who call us can be distressed, they can be despairing, or even having thoughts of suicide. So it's not necessary that only people who are suicidal will call. Majority of our calls may not even be suicidal.
Okay.
Well, so again, but then we can have calls ranging from someone having suicidal passive thoughts, active thoughts. We can have someone calling suicide even when they are having planning, in the planning stage, they are having plans on how to die. And even when they have attempted or about to attempt suicide, they may call us even then. So we get all types of calls.
You get calls post attempt as well.
We can get calls from police or some people like that, if that's what you're saying. Yeah, we can.
Yeah, in terms of, are there any legal repercussions of knowing that there might be a possible attempt on life? of taking somebody's life.
Point, right. It's a very good question. Right now, the point is because there's such a high stigma around suicide. It's very difficult for people to get help for it,
Right.
for suicidal thoughts.
Mhm.
People normally consider suicidal thoughts to be something that it's just the person thinking it, right? If they just stop thinking about it, then that's that.
Yeah.
But they don't quite understand how the intrusive nature of suicidal thoughts. So when they are able to see that it's not a matter of choice, then it is something. Then they understand that it's almost like an affliction for the person. Even they may not be wanting to have those thoughts. We
Right.
tend to think that they want to have those thoughts, but it's never that case. Nobody wishes upon suicide or suicidal thoughts. So what we are hoping is ki, so that's why we have to offer a service that is anonymous. So people can call us without the fear that they will be tracked.
Right. So you don't take their names. You don't take their.
Until and unless they share it with us, we don't ask for their name, number, contact details or anything like that. Only whatever they are comfortable sharing in their own free will, we will be taking. So even our volunteers don't get access to any numbers that are coming as well. So that way we are assuring our callers that no matter what it is that is bothering you, even if you feel that, oh my God, it may be illegal or something like that, you know what, just call, just talk about it. And again, that's why we are always also saying it's anonymous, so that we don't take records of their names or anything like that. It's confidential, so anyone who calls us, the information that even the fact that someone called us stays confidential within Samaritans.
Right.
Until and unless like there's a situation of terrorism or active case of child sexual abuse, or so in these very specific cases, or if there is a death in progress and the person has shared with us their details, so now we know where they are. So that's a very unique situation where authorities confidentiality will be broken.
Right.
But otherwise, anything that the person shares with us stays between them and our organization.
How
So
open?
Samaritan,
Yeah.
all the other suicide helplines that are functioning under befrienders.
How open are people to talk about their problems to an anonymous person?
You'll be surprised, right? Like, what is your question in that? Does it seem odd to you?
It kind of does, because ideally to talk to somebody and to share your problems with them, ideally you should be a little close to them.
Great. How many of your really closest person know every secret about it? Do you see? Again, you don't have to answer the name or anything like that. The point being, now, as a facilitator, this question I ask 100 out of 100 people will be like, no, I still have secrets. You understand?
Yeah.
And the point is, it's not that it's just the closeness that helps us share deep, dark things with our loved ones, but the closeness also stops us from sharing our pain.
Right, because you don't want to maybe enhance their pain or whatever.
Whatever reason we give ourselves, I'm not agreeing with it.
Okay.
That this is right.
Fair.
Okay, I'm not saying. I'm just talking about the excuses we are giving ourselves. That if I tell my wife about my pain, or my mother, my family about this particular challenge, they will understand. Yeah, but they are so sweet. Why do they need to go through this now?
Correct. Why
Or
you don't want to burden them with your own
right?
Yeah,
Right.
anything.
This is
Correct.
You see, this is the reason that we are giving.
Right.
Our family hasn't said that to us.
Right. True.
Are you understanding? So there is whatever reason we kind of given to ourselves. So many a times, it's as weird as it sounds, it becomes easier to share our deepest, darkest, most painful thoughts to someone who you don't know, because it's just out there. It's not going to come back to me. It's out of me now. It doesn't have to stay in there. If that makes sense.
It does. I mean, I don't have to be attached in terms of I don't know the person. So it's like it's not an obligation for that person to come back to me and ask me about it and then make me think about it. Sorry?
We can't even call you back.
Yeah, exactly. So there is no relationship that is there. But at least I can vent out, or I can say whatever it is that's on my mind and feel heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's essentially the gist of the service. And I'm telling you, and you see how easy that sounds?
To share sounds.
No, as a service, how easy it is possibly to offer.
To be a listening ear.
Yeah, just that, right?
Yeah, yeah. It sounds very easy. I mean, it doesn't sound easy. It feels easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's why even after the training, we have a selection criteria. It's just that you're trained does not mean that that you're ready for a suicide prevention helpline calls as
Right.
well. So, and again, there may be things that people can practice more and things like that as well. But yes, based on our resources, the way we have to manage our day-to-day things as well, um, we have to have a strict selection criteria post training as well.
Out
And
of out of 100, how many people will get selected?
there is no
Any
such
any percentage on that? I mean, just this is just yeah.
I mean, we can have even if it's a batch of 15 and we get one selected, that's fine because that's what is
Yeah.
supposed to be. But otherwise, we have currently around at least 50% or more do get selected as of now. That's the average rate.
Are there any outliers to this area? Do you get any nonsense calls, or
Okay.
do you get some people who are just messing around, or does it ever go in a loop where you are listening and you are saying something and then like are there people who just want to play around with you with the
Yeah, I mean,
calls that
people
they
get
get?
in a loop also because it may be they can't help it. So it may not always necessarily be prank or anything like that. But can people call? Can there be inappropriate calls? Let's put it that way. Yes. In fact, almost 25% or more of our calls tend to be inappropriate.
What do you mean? What do you mean by inappropriate?
Inappropriate calls can be where the callers are trying to make the listener, the volunteer, uncomfortable. That can include by trying to get sexual gratification, may try to be aggressive or abusive towards the volunteer. I mean, we are not talking about if you're sharing something and you're sharing it angrily, for example. It's something that has happened with you, you're upset. That's not what we're talking about. But if that abuse is directed towards the volunteer who's trying to be there for you, they can try to again deflect away from their
The actual
emotions, what
issue.
they're going through, and they're just probably just trying to stop the call from hanging up, stop the listener from hanging up, I guess. So yeah, that kind of calls can be inappropriate, and aggressive, abusive, sexually demanding, we get all those types of calls. In fact, that's the story for I think any phone line you may start for an organization. If you start such a phone line that you have advertised and you've made it accessible for the general public, there is some service available on that where people are expected to be compassionate, empathetic, they will get such calls.
How do you, if you're a volunteer, how do you will be going through some lot. It'll be an experience to listen to somebody's story. You're trained for it, yes, but yeah, how do you de-stress?
Right.
Are there
So because
procedures for
of
that as well? Yeah.
I thank you for that question. So we understand that after every call or every call brings with it its own sense of pain that the other person has gone through, and it can be for anyone listening to it, it's impossible to say that it won't impact you, it won't affect you.
Right.
You will get swayed with the pain that they are going through, right? So you will start sympathizing some places. So and let me add to that problem, because we operate on such high levels of confidentiality. So
You
our
can't
volunteers
share
don't
it with
even
somebody else as well outside.
we don't even
Yeah.
so whatever happens calls happen within Samaritans, all of that needs to be handled within Samaritans.
Right.
So because that is what we have promised the caller as well.
Right.
So do you see this is like even
Conundrum.
much more complicated?
Yeah.
Yes. So over here, what we do is we also, while we have volunteers, we also have support volunteers, where every call, every distressing call, or anything that for the volunteer there is a shift parallelly running to support the volunteers on the shift. So these support volunteers are not taking calls; they're only available for the volunteers so that they can also offload how the calls are going for them, so they get emotional support as well. And then additionally, the whole SAMS community is there to reach out as well. So beyond your support volunteers, people can reach out to other fellow volunteers, senior volunteers, even to the directors. So that way, if there is as open a communication we can keep to ensure that people are able to ventilate.
It sounds a little heavy. You need training.
It's not the advice without
It's not anybody's cup of tea, and you would
So
require.
right? So even those who come to the training, we make it very clear to them as well that this is not, please do not have a thought process ki Samaritans is going to choose us or not. Also consider the part that you have to choose Samaritans.
Yeah.
Because as the training goes ahead, people get to see the ground reality more and more clearly.
Yeah.
Now, and then that is a decision you need to make. Are you right now in your life looking to get into this space? Do you want to work in this space? Again, it doesn't cause you to be suicidal or something, if that makes sense.
Right.
But if you are dealing with some mental health issues yourself,
Should
if you are dealing with
point
challenges,
out,
your mind space right now, then I will not recommend it.
Correct.
Volunteering.
Right. So this is Samaritans Mumbai. Is it only for Mumbai? Do you get calls from all over?
We get calls even from all over the world. Sometimes we can get it from outside the country as well. But Samaritans is just one of the organizations as well.
Yes.
Under Defenders India, we have 13 other helplines present across India.
Yeah.
In the north, we have all the way, in Delhi, nothing northern than that. But all these numbers are accessible across India.
Right.
So we have in Chennai, we have it in Kolkata, we have in Gujarat, Kerala. So across the country, we have these.
So it doesn't matter. The location does not matter because it's a helpline and people can call from anywhere. And you do get a lot of calls from everywhere. Do you?
Right. As do the other helplines.
Right.
So the only thing you may need to check, if it is from a particular region, there's a higher chance that you may speak that regional language speaker may be there with that particular helpline. So if it is a helpline based in Chennai, there's a higher chance you may get a listener who speaks Tamil.
Right.
So accordingly, you can pick and choose the helpline you want to speak to, connect to.
Right. Do you offer any physical in-person?
Some of the helplines do. Some of the helplines do. I think with Samaritans, post-COVID, our face-to-face befriending had kind of stopped. We had started in between, but now it has again stopped.
What do you do during COVID? COVID would have been...
Right, we had to move to remote tele-befriending. That means we had to get people to be able to befriend from their homes. So we had to completely move the system around. We had to move out of the office because we couldn't go to the office anymore. So getting cloud telephony, trying to get anonymity fixed in there so that the numbers visibility goes. And so everything had to be digitized overnight. And we were very happy. I believe we made that change within 2 weeks, I believe.
Wow. But did the calls drop? Did you see any change?
No, calls in fact increased quite a bit during that time. Because of the unique nature of remote tele-befriending, now what happened was volunteers dropped. Because coming to the center and taking calls is much more feasible for a lot of us than being able to do it in our own homes with other people around as well, right? So in fact, what we had was almost a 50% drop in our volunteers. And then a corresponding increase in the number of calls.
How do you manage?
If they're a volunteer, they will keep taking calls. See, the point is there is never enough to manage. We are doing 6 hours already. We can say that we are not managing because it needs to be a 24-hour service.
Right.
24-hour services need training. Unfortunately, there may be 24-hour helplines, but what trainings that have been provided to the volunteers, to the listeners. Because high level training, 40-hour training, 50-hour training, if you start giving, and if they don't stay, if the turnover is high, how do you keep doing this process?
Right. Makes
So
sense.
requirement is you need people who are really going to be able to handle this, be able to offer a good service, and still be able to manage themselves. So it's already a very tough requirement. It's not just on the willpower of the person or the confidence of the person either. Then there be them being able to offer a particular time from their life where they're not going to be making money.
Yeah.
Right? Now, imagine that time you have to choose is 1 a.m. to 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that in Mumbai on a Friday night? Right. So these are the challenges that we have to deal with, but we still get so many missed calls. The number of calls that we get and the number of calls that we missed always practically remain the same, because at any given point of time, if all your volunteers are on the calls and there are still calls coming, what do you do?
So you're saying that 15 number of calls that you take in a day are the number of people you speak to. You would get twice the number of calls of number of people who are trying to give you a call, and even more than those would be calling, but nobody is there to answer.
Yeah, because the call will not get connected, right? Because all the numbers are already booked.
So you can say, so
not an appointment.
Correct. So give or take, there'll be around 40, 45 callers in a 6-hour span in a day.
30 plus, yeah, callers can be there. So the point being that, when caller, so you will get a lot of feedback, right, on helplines.
Yeah.
You will see that, okay, nobody answers. No, it is answering someone. The point is we cannot have a person going through an emotional crisis and tell them, okay, 10 minutes ho gaye, abhi rakho phone.
Exactly.
You understand the nuance of this place?
Yes.
Someone needs a 4-hour, sometimes call can go for 4 hours. So one person is now off shift essentially.
Correct. Yeah.
But tell me, what do we say instead? Right, bhaiya bas ho gaya?
No, you can't say that, yeah.
Incredibly tough. It's not counseling where it's regimented. You can be like, okay, this is an appointment. We know who we are going to speak with. We know every week they will be coming. Or you know that what has happened, you know their history, you know where their goals are. And okay, this is what we do in 60 minutes. Tap. But when we are dealing with situations like us, this is what we tell in our training as well. Our job is not so much as the doctor, the nurse, or anyone like that, right? When you compare it with a physical situation. Our job is more like that ambulance driver, right?
To get...
Absolutely just focused on one thing, that is provide emotional support. That's all you can do.
Right.
We don't believe that we have any solution, because earlier this was a part of the question that you had asked, right? Like, okay, there are these solutions that we can get. Oh, like a simple, quick question, right? Like, if you haven't, or I'd like to normally just ask people like, okay, have you had the pleasure of, or have you been lucky enough to have had breakups? So now, have you been lucky enough to have multiple breakups? Right. Now, imagine the situation here. What we are saying is, what should we do when we have a breakup, Mihir? If I ask you, or others as well, do we have a set of things we can tell the person?
Yeah. It is there.
Spend time with yourself.
Yeah.
Focus on hobbies.
Yeah.
Tinder, Bumble hai, there is plenty of fish in the sea.
Correct.
Ek jayegi, dusri aayegi, whatever. Right? Now, that person was not good enough only. Falana. This 6 things that we have. इसके अलावा कुछ है क्या?
नहीं
है.
Yeah.
So when your friend has come to you with the breakup thing, do you think he doesn't know this?
Yeah, he's too clouded. Yeah.
But do you think that उसके बीच में आप lightning बन के जाओगे तो he'll be like, oh, मैं भूल गया था, so let me.
Yeah.
Because why I asked you the question was, did it work for you? You knew this, na?
Yeah. That's
Forget
true.
your friend. Did it work for you? In fact, if I ask you, think about it. If you had multiple breakups, you may notice that even the breakups didn't feel the same way.
But then, what is the person coming to you for? Are they coming to you so that you can just listen and like unless they really
Are you
ask you for?
understanding? This is the problem. Because we think that there needs to be a solution, right?
Yeah.
And because apparently the person who's been dealing with it for 10 years now
Mm-hmm.
obviously didn't have time to come up with a solution. But you, my friend, me, we are so clever listening to this 5-year issue, which
Uh-huh.
has other compounded impact,
Stress. Mm-hmm.
catalysts, and all of those things there. Somehow, in this 10-minute conversation, we have understood it exactly.
And become so knowledgeable that we know the answer.
Now we have 3 solutions for it,
Yeah.
and then we start getting upset with the person for not doing the solution.
Because we are attaching our own ego
Because
to the
यार
answer that
तेरे
we
को
give.
बोला था रात को 2 बजे मैसेज मत कर उसको,
Yeah.
अभी भी किया तूने. See, this is why you will never get over. भाई आप ही हो गुरु, आपने समझा दिया अभी से.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the problem with pain. You don't understand pain then.
But
Right?
then,
If I hmm?
but then if you're an elder person, let's say if you're a family member and you are concerned, right, and you see that you have experience, let's say if you're an elderly gentleman and you have experience of such a situation, like people think that they do, you think that your intervention would solve a particular problem. As you said correctly, that people don't have, they have the information already with them.
Biggest problem with people is we are all trying to be gods. We all think that apparently we are going to stop something from happening or make something happen.
Mm-hmm.
All right, because we think that that is the definition of help. Me affecting a change in the other person's situation.
Is help.
My simple question to you is: are you in control of every part of your life situation?
No.
You better be, because only then you will have a right to speak to this person and tell them what they are doing in their life or what wrong they are doing in their life. Right? Because we all have problems which are not fixed. There are simple solutions for a lot of those issues that are not fixed, but we haven't done it. That means there is a reason for it. So first and foremost, we have to understand we are not logical beings.
Right.
Right? We are emotional beings, first and foremost. So until and unless we address that component, we think that logic पे ये चलता रहेगा, तो 35 के बाद breakdown होता है.
Right, because rationality can go only so much, and then it is mostly intuitive. But then, how do you? I mean, it.
आपका जो ये older generation का जो आपने छोटा ये बोला था इसमें भी,
Mm-hmm.
like think about it. Okay, so now you know what that thing is.
Right.
You know what they are saying.
Mm-hmm.
You have heard it from childhood. You're not hearing anything new.
It's just
It's
that
also something.
this would put parents in a big dilemma because, in my opinion, what it would do is that parental neglect could be a big reason where, like, ideally parents would be. I would want.
Every generation has their cross to bear.
Fair.
Right? One generation is getting too much neglect because the parents are busy working because that is what they believe is needed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So everyone's got a reason to do whatever they are doing. This is first what we need to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is doing anything just because, right? There is an association with it. They are doing it. They see something coming out of it that makes it worthwhile to do it. They're doing it. It causes pain, sure. Are they able to talk about it? From your older generation perspective, if you can see it, are you trying to change them? Is that what you're trying to do?
No.
So, what are you complaining about is my question. Again, see, if you feel that there are views that are bigoted or something like that, you want to have an argument, go for it. But if your goal is that I'm gonna get the other person to change their opinion, I'm sorry, none of us have that power. Their opinions come from their life experience. Until and unless you are able to impact it in such a way that that changes, right? You are never going to get someone's opinion changed.
Right, but my point was more about the illusion of control that people have, that parents have for their children, and they would want to create a safe space where they would want that the child comes and speaks to them about anything under the sun. And in a lot of situations it doesn't happen, and they make friends and there are bad influences, and so on and so forth. This is more like, how do you keep relationships, and how do you build trust, and how do you build so that you can become that year if required. um, how do you do it, irrespective of if you're a parent or a not parent or a friend or a spouse or...
Now, the answer is simple. The point is, what is stopping us? Again, answer is always going to be simple. It will be the thing that are stopping us from doing it. You are saying you want to build trust, you need to invest time in that.
Mm-hmm.
Trust is not a state.
Mm-hmm.
Trust is something that you build.
Right.
Trust is when you feel so much love or faith, belief in the other person that you are willing to take a big risk.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of when you to understand trust, right? So the potential hazard that I'm about to face, your presence, I have enough faith in you that this will not happen to me, is what we are talking about when trust
Correct.
is being issued.
Correct.
So tell me, what have you done for me to feel this way?
Mm-hmm.
This cannot happen just like that. It has to be built.
Right.
That means what? You have to spend time.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have enough interactions where it will be broken, it needs to be built.
Yeah.
Just like your regular muscles.
Yeah.
So who do you want to understand? Spend time with them is the simple answer.
Right.
Give attention. Because the more you give attention, you will understand them more. Now you have a reason to trust them, because now you understand who they are.
And they you, hopefully.
There you go. Until and unless that happens, why would anyone? If they don't know you, why would they trust you? You can't just demand it because you are a nice person.
Fair. Good point. Is there a difference between self-harm and
I mean,
attention?
depends on how you're using the word. But yeah, sorry. And
Like-
attention seeking.
No, like somebody attempting to actively take the step and self-harm. Would there be...
Right. So
dependent
basically,
on context? Yeah.
so basically, suicide comes under the category of self-harm.
Okay. That would be the last, maybe.
Right. So self-harm is essentially if you harm your body,
Mm-hmm.
cause pain to your body.
Mm-hmm.
इतने में अभी फिलहाल समझ. Now this can happen in two ways. One is with a suicide intent to die.
Mm-hmm.
Second, without suicide intent. So that will be NSSI, non-suicidal self-injury.
Okay.
So that is different from suicide attempt. So this is where a person may injure themselves, hurt themselves, cut themselves, burn themselves, scratch themselves, pull their hair, bang their head. Multiple ways a person can injure themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what. And what we have seen is predominantly it gets tagged very naively as an attention-seeking behavior.
Yes.
Because we don't understand it well. It gets tagged as an attention-seeking behavior. It gets tagged as people just trying to be popular, or it's a fad, or multiple things without addressing what it's a myth.
How do you, like, any other... I mean, this is a crazy myth to come across. It's not like it's untrue. It's just that people have that perception that this guy is looking for attention.
Yeah.
Any other crazy myths that are real that people take for granted as this person is not real?
No, because this over here, understanding that this is more than an attention-seeking behavior or anything like that, because predominantly you see them in adolescent females.
Mm-hmm.
This is why these kind of labels become, I feel, again, this is a subjective opinion part, where it becomes easier to make such labels of attention-seeking and stuff, where
For
when it
females.
comes to people. ऐसे टाइप के labels लगाना बहुत easy है society में. But what essentially is happening is we see this in almost 20% of the children worldwide.
That the self harm.
Yes, self-injury.
Self-injury in terms. Okay.
खुद को इंजर करना, बॉडी को इंजर करना.
As a way of
Almost
communicating that you require attention.
Again, that's the thing, right? People think that this is attention seeking. No, more often than not, this is a coping mechanism for the child. Because growing up, the child has whatever trauma or whatever thing that they are dealing with, right? So they will also experience psychological pain.
Right, of course.
Now, how do you deal with psychological pain? So when you have a headache, what do?
You take a Crocin.
Crocin या बाम लगा लेते हैं, कोई लोग पता है ना. बाम कैसे बाम लगाने से help? How does it help?
It makes it
burns you.
Yeah, it burns. Yeah.
So it takes away. So the attention which is there on the pain here inside your head gets distracted over to your skin.
So are you saying that it is not really working on your headache? It is only shifting your attention from A to B. So
what is even headache?
Technically,
headache
A is not even taking.
Understand one thing. What is a headache? There is no such thing as a headache. There is headache. Your head is pounding right now. That is a symptom for something. That is your body giving
like a
you
fever. The fever is not the problem. Yeah.
Right. It's your body doing something to fight something.
Right.
Or to alarm you. Like, bro, your hand is broken.
Yeah.
This is a very important thing. So guess what? I'm gonna make it hurt. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna make it hurt like 10, because that's how big a priority this is. So essentially, what is happening for pain mechanism, right? Now imagine when the child is experiencing psychological pain. Now they are not even able to point out where it is, how it is, and how to get it out, how to express it, how to process it.
Right.
So almost 20% of children end up in this route when their coping mechanism becomes causing pain to themselves. And what happens is, just like that headache example that I gave right now and the balm works, this pain when they're cutting themselves, you have normally noticed it maybe in the wrists or things like that, right?
Yeah, like
ये देखो ये दिखाने के लिए कर रहे हैं, right? But when you put in this attention seeking का label on them, you know what happens after this? Now they start cutting themselves in their underarms,
because nobody can see it,
in their thighs. But so now you will at least not give me this label.
Yeah.
अभी क्या बोलोगे तुम लोग? अभी भी कुछ बोलेंगे ना? See, the point is, until and unless we are able to look beyond labeling something and blaming it on the person, can we look at, okay, this person is in pain, they need help. So
right.
Until and unless we get into that mode, okay, something is happening, the person probably needs help, I will not even listen to them. Most often than not, they will tell you what they need. Right? But we have already decided that you are an idiot. Why would you do this? This is such a stupid thing. And the person is like, I can't breathe. Oh, shut up. You have upset me. How could you do this to me? I'm like, okay, take your time.
Alright. I mean, how do you condition the society?
The point is, you have been conditioned. So first thing is, like we
unconditioned,
said,
fair enough.
You have to focus on unlearning. Now I hope that it's making a bit more sense why we put self-awareness to that high importance. But then it is everyone's decision how much do they want to dive into it. Right?
Yeah.
How deeply do you want to address your biases? How deeply do you want to work on your feelings? Those are still choices. So can they be a better listener? Yes, they will definitely become a better listener. But jo unko chahiye, that intensity where they want, they have to understand that their own hurdles will need to be ascended.
This seems to be like an incredibly tough affair. I mean, it's like you are dealing with people, right? And these are more distressed than not. But it's not like the people who are not calling, or like anybody else who's not calling is not going through something of their own. They may better be able to handle themselves, or they may have methods that they have found out, or they have somebody to speak to, or so on. Still, like, it's so fragile that how would you, I mean, society in general, how, like, what would you want society to do, or what is your vision in terms of seeing society that is less judgmental, less, it's easy to put these words, it's easy to say less judgmental because we
It's
are
like,
having a
again,
conversation now.
my problem is suicide, right?
Yeah.
My problem is if there is anyone going through these thoughts, if they need help, that is easily something we can provide.
Mm-hmm.
We just need more people to kind of join that cause.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. This entire world-changing business is pointless. What do I mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
Like what we start doing is then now say, oh, we will put language barriers around how to talk about suicide.
Right.
Now understand that the layman doesn't understand your grammar,
Right.
or how, like, even those with suicidal thoughts will say, very often say, I feel like committing suicide. And now language will be like, oh, don't say committed.
Yeah.
Right? People with suicidal ideation will also joke about suicide.
Correct.
Will make fun of suicide. Will make fun of people with suicidal ideation. Now, do you care more about telling the person how wrong they are in making a joke about suicide, or if that person is having suicidal thoughts, rather they talk about it?
Right. Or listen.
So that you understand, the problem is, again, we are just trying to take this moral high ground. Instead of just doing the simple thing, just listen, Baba. Just listen to the people around you. Your job is done.
Right. Yeah.
You don't even need to join a helpline. You have 10-15 people in your life. Start listening to them. I'm not saying you start doing the actions that they may have expectations from you and stuff like that. ये सब नहीं बोल रहा हूँ.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to what they're trying to tell you. Are you sure you have understood everything that person has conveyed to you? I have a big doubt.
Okay.
Is that making sense? So
it makes a lot of sense, but it's like, if I make a clip out of this and people see this, it would be taken out of context with respect to the unlearning and the unconditioning plays such a big importance in the way that we live life and the way we interact with people in general, and it's just taken for granted how simple it is to attach yourself to a way of thinking.
That is the entire problem, right?
Yeah.
Because we listening is that simple. Problem is, we have made it really complicated because of our life and the complications it presents.
Yeah.
Right? So, and it is the most underrated skill. What is the percentage of population that has got any formal, informal training in listening?
In listening, less than 2%. I don't know.
Are you understanding what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
I don't even need to. So, this is something that we spend over 45% of our day time doing.
Yeah.
And we are all very sure about it. Many of us will say, I'm a really good listener.
And feel that way because, yeah.
Feel that.
Yeah.
Why? What did you do? He came to me and I told him, like, do this.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. When I ask people, why don't you share your problems with people? Because they don't understand it and give me 10 solutions.
Yeah.
So the reason why you don't go to others is the same thing you do to others. So this is the kind of a paradox we have created for ourselves. It is quite simple. Well, you need to, however, have a focused approach towards it. The simplicity of it has made it really complicated. So you will need to put in some effort for it. So even in our trainings and all, we always say, okay, it takes almost a month to finish the training, but then the next month after it is very important for you to practice those traits, practice those skills, make it a part of your skill set. Then you can relax. Then you already got the skill set. It's now just about using it when and how you want it.
Right.
But just based on your expression, yes, listening can be that objectively seen. and broken down.
Yes, I mean, it should be should it be taught or should it be made? I mean, it's an essential. It could be an essential soft skill.
Do you think listening is important?
Yeah,
What do you think is the cost of miscommunication?
a lot, a
So do you
lot,
think
a
listening is
life.
important? Learned. So yeah. So we have our answers.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
So the point is, do you prefer that or नहीं मुझे मेरे बच्चों को सितार सारंगी सिखाना है, ठीक है, वो better है.
It's so tough, man. I applaud you. It's something, and if you could get or if you could give some message on what does a suicide prevention NGO need from the locality, from the society, so that as a whole, if we could not, if we could not ourselves volunteer for whatever reason, whatever it is, what can we do more so that it makes your job as the volunteer not easier, but hopefully it is beneficial for you, and we could become better as people as well.
No.
I don't think
we
if
have
it is,
people,
yeah.
again, this good worse thing again we put in, then we already gonna be in trouble. The point is, from our side, what I will simply say is, see, today you have got some information about suicide or self-harm or other things that probably you didn't have beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was a veil of ignorance that has been lifted. Now, understand that now you have the privilege of this.
Yes.
Now you have gone from ignorance into a privileged space that you have this information.
Correct.
But understand, majority of the world does not.
Yes.
Don't be a preacher. Don't start telling people what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get transferred that way. It is only through conversation, which is open, accepting. Even if you feel like you're talking to ignorant people, be open to sympathizing with their situation, that you were like that.
Right.
That's all.
I used to be that
So-
way, and so empathizing can be easier. Yeah.
Right. So just allowing people to make their mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Think, and then whenever you feel like, okay, this person is in distress or pain, be open to asking them, hey, have you been having these thoughts? Do you need help? Can I help you? Right? That's how Samaritans operate. So I think it's just the helpline. If anyone calls in, this is the first thing they will hear: Samaritans Mumbai, can I help you? And that's where I think the whole mantra is as well, right? If you're a friend, being able to offer that, can I
Mm-hmm.
help you in that sense? Not forcing it upon the person,
Right. Up to that.
but offering it still. I think half the job is done,
Right.
right? Most of us, this is a very common complaint that comes up, like, oh, they will ask for money. I'm like, Arey Baba, like, do you have it? No, nah, you don't have it either. So it's like you don't want to say no.
Right.
This is the problem. Like, I hate saying no to someone who's come to me with so much help. Again, stop putting yourself on a pedestal. If you're a human being just like them, it's easy. Bro, I don't have it, but can we do something? Can I help?
Right. Can we figure it out together? Or
Yeah, I mean,
something?
what else can I do? Is there something else you need? Like, okay, fine, you need money, you don't have it, you need to run for it. So should I hold your kids till the time you're running? So the point is, help can be something more simple. Listening and all तो training करने के लिए भी है, but पहले आपको वो help करने के लिए mentality में सामने वाला बताएगा. तो उसके लिए देखना.
Right.
I think that will be something not too complicated to do. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think that would be either. It's just having empathy for people in general. It's a hard thing to do, as you said, because people would attach their selves to everything, and then becomes the preaching, and then the unlearning, and it's like it's tough. It's tough, man. It's like I don't know how. There is no one single solution. There is no 100 solutions as well. I think everything hopefully happens
Why are you seeking one, right? So
Yeah.
the point is, when you're trying to be a listener, we also like to think of it as a different analogy, if you want to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you're sitting you and your friend are sitting watching the sunset.
Right.
Nice, beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what your friend is seeing and experiencing, is it the same as what you are seeing and experiencing?
No.
You're watching the same
That's the
sunset,
code. That's the code also, right? Like 8 billion people on this planet experience the day in 8 billion ways. Yeah, it's
The point is, the moment you have decided you know what the other person has seen, is where the problem starts.
right.
So if you want to be a listener, you be that friend. Don't be the God who knows what this person is going through. Be the friend who wants to know.
Correct.
What does this sunset look? What does this sunset look like to you? What does it make you feel? How is it impacting you? What are your thoughts on that? So getting to hear the other person, that is where listening starts and ends. So when we are listening, just focus on the listening bit. Don't focus on Sachin, what do I say?
What
To
do I
be a good
say? What
listener.
do I be? What I in my mind think about what value means to the other person and what it means to me, and do I need to open my mouth to really provide any value? And
This is the funny paradox, right? Like, imagine if you're coming for a training on listening and your only question as a participant is, what do I say?
yeah, little steps on the point.
Are you understanding? Like,
Yeah.
if the person were to do this, what do I say? You didn't ask me, how do I listen to that?
Right.
Because what you're saying is, I need to say something because this upset me. No. That means
How do I
something stopped you
respond?
from
It's always how do I respond? Yeah. It's
and
all,
what stopped you from listening to that. So you will have to address first things that are inside you. So again, pay more attention on your own self-awareness, building on understanding what you are, who you are, what are the things that you are good at, what are the things you can improve at.
right.
See if you can avoid labels. That's just an extra bit.
Okay. Sachin Chitambaram. It has been. I think we can go on this topic. I don't think there is any end time and end point. And not only is it fascinating, but it is so concerning to see that it is not so prevalent in terms of the understanding of people. People don't talk about it, even though everybody goes through something on some spectrum. There is a stigma, there is, it's actually better now in my opinion, because social media, hey, have a personality online also, you have a community maybe that you can vent to, you have somebody who's going through something similar like you. But that being said, it is still so, that depends on your individual.
But that's our thing, right? Gharwalon se mane, I'm not saying everyone has good parents and stuff like that. I'm not gonna say nonsense like that.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different experience with their family members and all of that. But understanding the first point of contact and relationship and trust and all of these things now, we need to first build with the people who are in our immediate vicinity first.
Right. Bond building,
Somehow,
relationship building, yeah.
right? Because now we have Reddit community for everything. We are finding our connections there. But if you are only having connection to pain in you, what about the rest of you? Right? So building trust and relationship, not trying to find a new person. You have quite a few people. You've met 1 million people plus one.
Yeah.
What went wrong everywhere?
Yeah. True. It's something to remark on for sure, something to think about, ponder upon, and hopefully imbibe and instill the best we can. Sachin, thank you so much for talking to me. It's been a privilege, as you said. The veil of ignorance has gone from not knowing to knowing so much more. I won't yap about it, but hopefully people listen, and I don't know.
Well, then we may be more open to sharing a suicide helpline's number to someone.
Yeah, true.
So even that being done, already
Gone.
the
Yeah.
wheels are.
Yeah.
So already that's impact. Now,
Fair.
will it look like an immediate impact? Oh, Sachin, suddenly 2 lives saved today. I saved 2 lives. we cannot be on that. Our focus is just keep on doing these
Yeah.
things. One more person is now able to share these helpline details and stuff like that. You are more open to talk about it. Job done.
Thank you so much, Sachin. It was
Thank you.
pleasure talking to you. Yeah.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning in, you guys. If you like this, then you can hit the like button. The algorithm likes it, gives me more views, and maybe I can contemplate on keeping this channel for free for you to see. If you hit the subscribe button, the algorithm likes that as well. But unlike the like button, this is more useful because you'd be actually notified by every time we do drop a video on this channel. If you have any complaints regarding the content that we drop or the questions that we ask, or you want to give us any suggestions with questions or people that you want us to interview, we have added a feedback form in the description. You are very welcome to fill that up and let me know. If you hated this content and you do not want to see my face ever again and do not want to share it with anybody and do not want to refer this kind of content with anyone, then until you do tune in to my next episode or my last episode, or you do tune in, I would like to wish you in Truman Burbank's very own words, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Cheers.